Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to build your own AI LinkedIn post generator using n8n. This is the exact workflow that I use to generate content for my own clients in my marketing agency. And in this system, we'll see how it uses Apify to scrape competitors, then uses Claude to analyze those posts and find winning hooks, and then generates a 30-day content calendar all stored in Google Sheets so that you can just copy paste content and run content creation on autopilot. By the way, I'm Abhishek. I built and scaled my own SaaS company to over 10,000 users and sold my company to go full-time on my current business. All right, so without wasting any more time, I'm going to show you step by step how to build this entire workflow. But first, I'm going to start with a quick demo so you get an idea of what the result looks like. It starts with a Google Sheet, actually, with a list of 10 founders who are marketing on LinkedIn that are also running a D2C brand. For this example, let's pretend that I am a D2C company called Amplify that is selling apparel just like Gymshark is, and I'm trying to improve my founder-led marketing on LinkedIn. We're going to start to pipe that into Apify. So let's hit test workflow real quick. So it scrapes that Google Sheet, starts to fire off an Apify job that actually scrapes their LinkedIn posts, and then stores all those posts in the same Google Sheet, just in a different tab. So as you can see here, this is a list of the most high performing and recent posts that these founders have posted. And we're going to then start to analyze those posts with Claude. We're going to take that output, which is basically a compilation of all the good hooks that these founders have used for their posts, and then pipe it back to Claude so that we can generate new posts in our own brand voice using Claude once more. And then finally, it stores all those generated posts right to Google Sheet, and you can see that out here in this output. So on the left here is actually the original competitor post that was used as an example, and on the right in column B is our generated post. And as you can see, some of these are actually pretty good. Ooh, I really like this one. I rejected a $1.5 million investment offer. Not because we don't need the money. That is awesome. That is super good. And as you can see, there's so many posts here that are generated based on competitors' posts. And you can completely crush them with volume by just figuring out what they're saying, tune it up a little bit to your brand voice, make the stories real, and then send it out. All right, so the first thing we need is actually a Google Sheets node because we want to go and read that sheet of competitors that we stored here. So let's go and find a get rows item in the Google Sheets. And you actually have to start with creating a credential, which is basically just authentication to say, hey, link up my account with n8n. And the way you do that is actually create new credential, and then this OAuth button gives you a sign in with Google account where you can click and select the account that you want to pick that's connected to your Google Drive where you have your Google Sheet, and they'll be immediately connected. So I'm not going to do that because I've already done that. And the next thing we need is to get rows from the specific sheet. So I want to go and click competitor scraping, which is the Excel sheet that I have stored up there. And then within competitor scraping, I actually want to pick the competitor sheet itself. All right, once we have that data, we actually want to fire off a job on Apify so we can start to scrape their posts. So the one I actually like to use is called LinkedIn Profile Post Scraper. No cookies. It's by API Maestro. They're pretty good. It's pay by result, so you don't have to pay a monthly fee or anything like that. And their setup is actually pretty easy. You pass a username or a URL, which is going to be the case for me, and it starts to scrape posts that they've posted before. First thing we actually need to do is get an API endpoint, right? This is basically going to be the URL that we use to call Apify to kick off the scraping job, as well as get the results once that job is done. And the way we do that is actually scrolling down right here. You can see we have one link here that is running the actor synchronously as well as getting the dataset items. So you can go ahead and click here to copy the link. And if you haven't already set up your API token, you have to go ahead and do that. That's just basically the way that Apify authenticates your account with requests that are coming in. All right, so now that we have that URL, we're going to go back to n8n. We're going to create an HTTP request node. So it's just a simple way for us to trigger that actual URL. So we're going to come in here, select post, and then paste the URL that we copied from Apify. This is so that we can trigger the job as well as get the result. We're going to keep authentication as none, and the reason for that is because we're passing the token in the URL itself. The last thing we actually need is to set up the body. And the body is just going to be settings that we want to run with the Apify actor, which is going to be the username. And then one more thing is the result limit as well. And we can actually copy that from Apify just to make it simple. So you can come in here and add in just an example profile name, as well as a result limit. We're just going to stick to one result for the sake of the demo. And then if we click JSON, it actually spits out the JSON structure for us. So we can just copy and paste it right here. We're still going to have to edit this a little bit though, because this is static right now. It just has a single username. We're actually going to make it dynamic and get the LinkedIn URLs that we got from the previous node from our Google Sheets, and then pass this so we can fire the job over. All right, the next thing we need to do is actually store those posts in Google Sheets. So let's go ahead and create another node for Google Sheets. And in here, we're going to append or update a row. Doesn't really matter for right now, but very much the same settings. We're going to pick the same sheet, and then in here actually we're going to pick a different sheet this time called competitor post. So within the same document, different sheet. And for this, we're actually not going to map manually. We're just going to let it pipe all those fields into the Google Sheet. We're not going to try to store specific fields just for the sake of time. The last thing we need to do is actually hook those up, and then we're going to create a analyze posts chain. So let's create a Anthropic node, which basically just pulls the chat model for 3.7 Sonnet. In here, I've actually already set up a credential for Anthropic. So what you can do pretty easily is going to Anthropic, creating an API key, and then copy pasting that right here. I'm just going to use the one that I already have over here. And for the sake of this job, we're actually going to select 3.7 Sonnet. I've tried a bunch of different models. I've noticed Anthropic's the best in terms of really just being able to analyze posts and then generating as well. When it comes to creative writing, that's also reasonably cheap. So that's why I'm going with that one for today. But feel free to try any other model you can. If you find a model that's better at analysis as well as creative writing, let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to run this through a bunch of different models to get the best output. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to stick with Anthropic. And in here, there's no prompt yet. And the reason for that is we actually have to create a different node called an LLM chain. And what this basically does is it just hooks up a couple different inputs. One of them is actually a chat trigger node. We actually don't need that for this because we're not setting up a chatbot or anything like that. We're only going to be providing a static prompt, which is why we'll come in and just say source for prompt we're going to define below. And for the prompt itself, I'm actually going to just copy it from the other node that I have set up already. You don't have to worry about typing this out yourself. Like I said, it's in the description below. You can just copy it and it's set up for this specific use case. You might have to change it up a little bit to fit your specific company or brand, but that's about all you have to do. So let's go ahead and paste that back in the LLM chain right here. The last thing we're going to do, require a specific output format. The reason we want to do that is because LLMs can be pretty crazy with the actual outputs that they generate. We just want them to stick to a specific format so that we can pass that back into Claude without having to rip any text out. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We'll pick a structured output parser. Essentially what this is doing is giving the LLM a single guided format for it to follow when it outputs stuff, right? And that's what we actually provide in a JSON format. So also the same thing, I'm actually going to go through here and copy the JSON example itself. But just to go over really quickly, we're only storing two fields. The first one we want is actually a hook type, right? We want it to tell us what kind of a hook was this, and then the example text is actually going to include a little bit of the post itself. This is just a completely dud post that I came up with, and this is just so that we can guide the LLM to output in this exact format every single time it runs. And as you can see on the right here, it actually has a hook type and a hook example generated out for the input that we passed when we ran the demo. So that's a little bit about how the structured output parser works. We're going to copy paste and replace that. All right, and at this point, the LLM chain is set up. It's doing two things, just to summarize. The first thing is actually hooking up to a specific model with the prompt that we've generated. So it's going to take this prompt, pass it to Anthropic, and Anthropic's going to do a bunch of work and then spit that back out with the output format that we specified. So let's go ahead and hook that up with Google Sheets. So what we're doing here is one is storing the post and the other is taking exactly what we stored and passing that right back into the LLM. And then I want to show a little bit more detail about the prompt itself. So we're basically telling Claude that you are a LinkedIn ghostwriter for a company called Amplify, which is a DTC clothing brand. That's us. We offer eco-conscious clothing, ethically made apparel, offer high quality, all of that good stuff. The job is actually to analyze the posts that we just stored from our competitors and start to break them down into what the content type is, what kind of popular formats work, and we'll use that to basically mimic it later when we write the post out. So we actually take the post text from the Google Sheets node where we save those posts, and then we also add the number of reactions, basically specifying more the better. Reactions are just the total number of likes that are on the post, and we just specify that more equals better so that the LLM has a better idea of what to look for. So that's basically it for the first LLM chain. The next thing we need is actually the same thing, but we are going to generate the post using the examples that we got. Same thing as before, we're going to use 3.7 and the Anthropic credential that I already have, and then we're also going to create an LLM chain just like we did before, as well as an output parser. So let's get the basic LLM chain. We'll keep the prompt empty just for right now because I want to hook everything up before we actually start putting the prompts in there. And then one last node is the structured output parser. So again, this is just for us to guide the LLM to output it in a very specific format. Oh, I forgot to select require specific output format. Make sure you do that if you don't see the structured output node just right here on the LLM chain. All right, so hook that up and then we're going to start to pass the post. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is actually generate the post from the examples that we've already got and analyzed using the current node that we just built out. So let's go ahead and copy the prompt from here, paste it right here, and then let's go through this real quick. It's very similar to the previous prompt, except the actual goal is different. So we kind of walk through who the audience is. Like I said, I want this to be more of a founder-led marketing post. The main reason is we're going to basically post from a founder's profile, right? That's typically what works nowadays. Personal brands do way better than company brands can ever do. And so we're going to try to mimic that. In here, we actually start to just kind of grill the LLM a little bit, almost threaten it, because it actually does better if you do that, to basically stick to a specific guideline. The next part of the prompt is actually steering it and telling it a little bit more about what the profile looks like. So it's a personal brand profile, just like I mentioned, and we're basically telling you're doing really good with the hooks, but don't try to sell the company. With my previous testing, I noticed that it was always ending with selling the product or the company, and that really never works. You always want to have a soft CTA in whatever kind of marketing you're doing so that you don't look like you're begging, right? That's what we're doing here. We're basically saying, talk about the story about founder-led marketing, the hardships, the rejections, the tough parts about building a company, and then just getting really, really deep on the threatening part just so that it really sticks to it, saying, please generalize it. Don't try to talk about the company. Don't try to talk about the product. Talk about the person. And the last thing is actually telling it the goal. So write 5 high-performing LinkedIn posts for Amplify that feel like they're written by the founder, uses high-performing hooks, and is direct, founder-led, no BS, no polished marketing speak, right? We also pass it one of the high-performing posts that we just stored in the Google Sheets so that we can steer it towards that hook format, right? So let's go ahead and hook this up together. The only other inputs I have, which I'll show you in a second on how to set up, is just pulling the output from the previous run into this run. So let's go ahead and hook that up real quick. The last node that we'll need is actually a Google Sheets node, but then in here we're going to just do one more append a row. So we'll pick the right document just like we did before, competitor scraping, and then the last thing is we're going to do generated post as the sheet that's going to come out. We're going to map automatically again. We don't care about the fields for right now, but you can do that if you want to make the sheet look a bit prettier. In my case, I don't really care because I'm only going to use the posts that are generated from there, just copy paste them into LinkedIn and post it. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is actually hook up a trigger so that we can kick off this workflow. But if you've watched this far, please hit the subscribe button below, as well as giving me a thumbs up. It really helps with the juicy algorithm, especially because I'm a new channel. All right, so let's get into it. For right now, I'm only just going to do a test workflow trigger, but we can as easily set up a schedule trigger so that we can kick this off at specific days, minutes, hours, or even weeks if we wanted to at a specific time of day, right? Okay, now we're going to actually kick off the workflow real quick, and let's see if we have set everything up quickly. Yep, it all looks good. And we're going to start to do the same workflow. So it seemed like it got the first competitor list and it's starting to scrape them on Apify. Now it found all the posts for those 10 people, stored them on Google Sheet, and now it's running through Anthropic and figuring out what kind of post hooks work. Okay, so it analyzed those 10 posts and generated hooks and example text for all of them, and then passed to the next chain, which actually generates our own post itself, but then it ran into an issue. So let's take a look at what happened. Yeah, I forgot to set up the structured output parser for the second one. So this is for the posts that are actually generated. This is going to be for that last sheet where we guide the LLM to say, okay, give us a post number and then give us the post text itself. Pretty simple JSON. So let's copy that and then put this right back into here. And then we're going to run this workflow one more time. We can just kick it off from here. And it should start to generate a post using the examples that we passed it, as well as the giant prompt that we gave it right now. Okay, so it just got done generating all 10 posts, and this time it didn't error out. It actually put out all our posts in the exact format that we asked it. And the last piece was actually storing it in Google Sheets. So let's run this node really quick because I only ran that last node. All right, and it looked like it's done. So let's go and take a look at what the posts look like. Sweet. First one on the left, just like we said before, is the original competitor post, and the one on the right is the actual post itself. All right, let's walk through this. I stood outside the investor's office for 20 minutes before walking in. It's pretty good. I like it. Oh, I really like this one. 500 investor emails, 92 meetings, 41 follow-ups. Oh, I love that. That's super good because the first couple lines are literally what make the post. The rest of it literally doesn't matter because as soon as you get that engagement, LinkedIn knows that it should start boosting your post. All right, and that does it for the video. Super easy workflow, very awesome to just completely automate content creation. The prompts as well as the n8n template are on my Substack for free. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments what else you would like to see me automate, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, thanks.